Jason was defending her again, listing reasons she could never betray him, and suddenly it hit me, not like suspicion, but like impact. This hadn't been a mistake. It hadn't been recent. It had been happening for years. I sat there while he talked about loyalty, about how long they'd been together, about how people change, but Emily never had. And in my head, moments started lining up with brutal clarity. Trips she took alone. Late nights she brushed off. The same excuses recycled so smoothly they'd become invisible. Things we'd laughed about. Things we'd normalized. Emily watched me from across the room, calm, composed, confident. She wasn't worried because she didn't need to be. This wasn't a secret anymore, it was a system. One we'd all unknowingly participated in. I realized then that the betrayal wasn't hidden. It was disguised as routine. As personality. As marriage. We hadn't missed it, we'd accepted it. Over and over again. My chest tightened as Jason spoke, because every word he used to defend her was built on years of lies we'd helped hold up. I wasn't discovering an affair. I was realizing how long we'd all been looking straight at it. And I was the only one in the room who understood what that meant. From the outside, their marriage looked untouchable. Jason and Emily were the example everyone used. The if they can make it work, anyone can couple. Years together, no public scandals, no dramatic fights. They hosted holidays, posted smiling photos, talked about partnership like it was something they'd mastered. Emily knew exactly how to present it, how to make love look calm, stable, permanent. She played the role flawlessly. Thoughtful gifts. Remembered details. Always supportive in public. She touched Jason's arm when he spoke, laughed at his jokes, backed up his stories. The kind of marriage people trust without questioning, because questioning it feels unnecessary. Almost rude. Jason believed in it with his whole chest. He talked about her like she was proof he'd chosen right. Defended her instinctively. Took pride in how solid they were. And why wouldn't he? Everything about their life reinforced that belief. That's what made the realization so violent. This wasn't a marriage cracking under pressure. It was a carefully maintained image that had survived for years because everyone wanted it to be real, including me. We didn't just believe in their marriage. We protected it. We repeated the story until it felt true. And that belief became the safest place for her to hide in plain sight. I didn't notice it as a pattern at first. That's the thing about patterns, they disguise themselves as coincidence. It started with small inconsistencies I brushed off without thinking. Emily always had reasons for being unavailable. Work deadlines. Friends in crisis. Errands that somehow took all evening. Jason mentioned them casually, never suspicious, and I followed his lead. If he wasn't worried, why should I be? Then there were the repeated absences. The same explanations used months apart, identical in tone, rehearsed without effort. Trips she insisted on taking alone. Phone calls she stepped away to answer, even during family dinners. At the time, it felt like independence. Confidence. Boundaries. Words we used to avoid asking harder questions. What changed wasn't a single moment, it was accumulation. I started remembering things out of order. A birthday she missed. A holiday she had to work. A night Jason was sure she was home when I knew she wasn't. None of it meant anything on its own. Together, it formed a rhythm. A routine. The most unsettling part was realizing how long it had been going on. Years, not months. The same behaviors repeating with just enough variation to stay invisible. She hadn't been sloppy. She'd been consistent. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a secret slipping through cracks. It was a life built to pass as normal. And once I saw the pattern, I couldn't unsee it, no matter how much everyone else still did. Looking back, the red flags were everywhere. We just worked overtime to explain them away. Emily always had an excuse ready, polished and reasonable. If she was late, it was traffic. If she missed an event, it was work. If she disappeared emotionally, it was stress. And we accepted it because the explanations sounded mature. Adult. Responsible. Questioning them felt petty. There were moments that should have stopped us cold. Messages she hurried to clear when someone walked by. A phone call she took outside in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. A weekend trip that didn't line up with any photos or stories afterward. Each time, someone laughed it off. That's just Emily. She's always been like that. Jason trusted her completely, and that trust became contagious. If he wasn't worried, no one else wanted to be. Doubt felt disloyal. So we softened everything sharp. We turned discomfort into normalcy. Even I participated. I told myself I was overthinking. That patterns only looked obvious in hindsight. That marriages are complicated and outsiders never see the full picture. Those explanations felt kinder than the alternative. But kindness can be a cover. The truth is, we didn't ignore the red flags because we didn't see them. We ignored them because seeing them would have changed everything. There's a moment when knowing stops feeling like clarity and starts feeling like punishment. Once the pattern settled in my mind, I tried to push it back out. I told myself I didn't want to know. That some truths are intrusive, destructive, unnecessary. That connecting those dots didn't give me responsibility, it gave me anxiety. I wanted my old ignorance back. But knowledge doesn't ask for consent. Every memory replayed differently now. Every story Emily told felt slightly off, like a sentence missing a word. I caught myself watching her instead of listening, measuring gaps, noticing how easily she redirected conversations, how practiced she was at being reassuring. I hated that part of myself, the one that noticed. I hated that I'd become suspicious, that I could no longer sit in a room and feel neutral. Knowing changed how I saw everyone, not just her. It changed how I saw Jason's trust, our family's comfort, my own silence. I didn't want proof. I didn't want confrontation. I didn't even want justice. I just wanted the unease to stop. But once you understand that something has been wrong for a long time, pretending otherwise becomes exhausting. Denial takes effort. Awareness just sits there, heavy and unmoving. I knew enough to be disturbed, not enough to act. And that space, between knowledge and action, was the most uncomfortable place I'd ever been. The fear wasn't just about what would happen after. It was about becoming the person who said it. I kept imagining the moment, my voice cutting into a room, the sudden shift, the looks. Once words like that exist, they don't belong to you anymore. They spread. They harden. And no matter how careful you are, you become responsible for what they break. I was terrified of being wrong in the smallest detail. Not wrong about what was happening, but wrong enough for people to dismiss everything else. One mistake, one misremembered date, and the story wouldn't be about her anymore. It would be about me. About my motives. My tone. My timing. I was also afraid of what it would do to Jason. Saying it meant taking away something he didn't know he was losing, his certainty. His pride. The life he thought he understood. I wasn't sure I had the right to be the one who shattered that. And underneath all of it was a quieter fear, that I'd say it and nothing would change. That everyone would choose comfort anyway, and I'd be left exposed for nothing. Fear has a way of turning silence into a moral choice. It tells you you're protecting people, preserving peace, being mature. But really, it's just asking you to carry the weight alone. I wasn't afraid of the truth. I was afraid of being the one who refused to keep it quiet. The pressure didn't come as an order. It came as concern. My mom was the first to say it out loud. "You're overthinking this," she told me gently, like she was trying to calm a child. "You always dig too deep. Let it go." The word dig stuck with me, like I was doing something wrong just by paying attention. Others followed in quieter ways. An aunt warned me not to read into things that aren't my business. A cousin joked that I'd watched too many true crime documentaries. Someone else said, if something was really wrong, Jason would know. As if trust made people immune to betrayal. Every comment carried the same message. Stop looking. Stop connecting dots. Stop making people uncomfortable. No one asked what I'd noticed. No one wanted specifics. They didn't want clarity. They wanted closure without disruption. The family wasn't defending her directly. They were defending normalcy. The routine. The illusion that nothing serious had been missed for years. Emily didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The pressure wrapped around me without her lifting a finger. I was framed as obsessive, negative, stuck in the past. The problem wasn't what I was seeing, it was that I wouldn't stop seeing it. That's when I understood something brutal. Families don't silence you with force. They do it by convincing you that continuing to look makes you the threat. Isolation didn't happen all at once. It seeped in quietly, the way air leaves a room without anyone noticing. People stopped asking what I thought. Conversations shifted when I entered them, smoothing over anything that might invite depth. Invitations became vague or last minute. Group chats went silent when I spoke, then resumed without acknowledging what I'd said. No one confronted me. No one had to. At family gatherings, I felt like a shadow. Present, but not included. Emily moved easily through the room, laughing, relaxed, untouched. Jason stayed close to her, protective, proud. Watching them felt surreal, like I was the only one living in the wrong version of the story. When I tried to connect, really connect, I was met with discomfort. My presence carried something no one wanted to acknowledge. I hadn't accused anyone. I hadn't caused a scene. I had just refused to stop noticing. That was enough. Isolation became the consequence for seeing too clearly. It taught me what was acceptable and what wasn't. Silence meant belonging. Curiosity meant distance. And truth, without permission, meant being slowly pushed to the edges. I realized then that loneliness isn't always about being alone. Sometimes it's about being surrounded by people who've decided you're inconvenient. The longer everything stayed quiet, the more solid the lie became. What started as something unspoken slowly turned into something unquestioned. Emily didn't just maintain the illusion, she expanded it. She talked openly about how hard marriage can be, about loyalty, about growing together over time. Each story placed her deeper into the role everyone wanted her to play. Jason absorbed it all. He repeated her words like they were shared truths, defended her without being asked. The more years that passed, the more impossible it felt for him and for everyone else to imagine that something this established could be built on dishonesty. Time worked in her favor. Every anniversary, every family memory, every holiday spent together became proof. Look how long they've lasted. Longevity replaced honesty. No one wanted to believe that something this old could be this wrong. Silence trained us all. Doubt became inappropriate. Questions felt disrespectful. And Emily learned exactly how far she could go, how confident she could be, without ever being challenged. The lie didn't survive despite the years. It survived because of them. By the time anyone might have been willing to question it, the lie had roots. Deep ones. And I understood then that the most dangerous deception isn't sudden. It's the kind that grows quietly while everyone else calls it stability. It happened on a random Sunday, the kind no one remembers afterward. We were all in the kitchen, half listening to Emily talk about a work trip she'd taken years ago. I wasn't even paying attention until she mentioned a detail that didn't belong, one small thing, delivered too confidently. The city. The timing. The excuse. It clashed with something she'd said before, something I'd filed away without realizing why. And suddenly, everything lined up. Not just one inconsistency, but dozens. The late nights that matched the same months every year. The trips that always overlapped with the same conference. The emotional distance that appeared in cycles, not phases. It wasn't chaos. It was structure. A pattern. My stomach dropped with the kind of certainty you don't recover from. This wasn't a mistake or a rough patch stretched too thin. This was repetition. Planning. A second life that had been running quietly alongside the first. I looked at Jason, laughing at something she said, completely unaware. And I realized the most terrifying part wasn't that she'd been cheating. It was that she'd been doing it for so long, so consistently, that it had become part of the family's timeline, woven into birthdays, holidays, entire years we thought we understood. In that moment, denial stopped being possible. The truth didn't shout. It settled. The truth didn't come out in a dramatic confession. It slipped. Emily was distracted. Jason was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up with a name none of us knew. Not a coworker. Not a friend. Just a first name, familiar in the worst way. One I'd seen before in pieces I wasn't supposed to connect. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. The preview was enough. Too intimate. Too practiced. Too old. When Jason came back, I asked one question. Calm. Careful. The kind you ask when you already know the answer. Emily answered without thinking and contradicted herself within seconds. I watched her realize it too. The pause. The recalculation. The way her face tightened just slightly. Jason noticed. The room shifted. Questions followed. Small at first, then sharper. Emily tried to steer the conversation back to normal, but the rhythm was gone. She reached for humor, then deflection, then tears, each one arriving too late. And then Jason asked to see her phone. That was it. The years collapsed into minutes. Messages. Dates. Locations. A history that could no longer hide behind charm or timing. The truth didn't explode, it accumulated, undeniable and heavy. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to explain. Shock didn't look like screaming. It looked like stillness. Jason sat down slowly, as if gravity had suddenly doubled. He kept scrolling, even after there was nothing new to see. Like if he reached the end, the truth might stop being real. Emily spoke in fragments, out of context, misunderstanding, not what it looks like. Each phrase landed softer than the last, stripped of power. The rest of the family froze in disbelief. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else said, there has to be an explanation. Not because they believed it, but because they needed it. Accepting the truth meant admitting we'd all been wrong for years. Denial rushed in to fill the space where certainty used to be. People focused on technicalities. Dates. Definitions. Were they actually together then? Maybe it was just emotional. As if minimizing it could make it survivable. Emily leaned into the chaos, using it like cover. Tears. Apologies that went nowhere. Justifications that changed mid-sentence. Jason watched her like a stranger, his mind clearly split between what he loved and what he'd just seen. Shock isn't loud. It's the moment reality arrives before anyone's ready to let it stay. The shift didn't come with apologies. It came with silence. The same people who told me to stop digging stopped meeting my eyes. Conversations stalled when I entered the room, not because I was inconvenient anymore, but because I was right. No one said it out loud. They didn't have to. Emily lost something she couldn't fake back. Her confidence fractured. She spoke less. When she did, her words were careful, measured, stripped of authority. The ease she once moved with was gone, replaced by tension she couldn't charm away. Jason stopped defending her. That alone changed everything. He didn't attack. He didn't rage. He just withdrew, emotionally, physically, completely. And in that distance, the truth grew heavier than any accusation ever could. People started coming to me quietly. One by one. I always felt something was off. I didn't want to say anything. I guess you saw it before the rest of us. Each confession landed with a strange weight. Not validation, recognition. The power didn't shift because I proved anything. It shifted because the lie lost its audience. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They unfolded slowly, unevenly, the way real fallout always does. Jason moved out within a week. No announcement. No dramatic goodbye. Just boxes, quiet determination, and a look on his face I'd never seen before, one that held grief and clarity at the same time. The marriage everyone admired ended not with a fight, but with exhaustion. Emily lost control of the narrative, and with it, the protection she'd relied on. Friends pulled back. Invitations stopped coming. Sympathy was limited and conditional. People were polite, but distant, like they were afraid dishonesty might be contagious. In the family, dynamics shifted permanently. Holidays became smaller. Conversations stayed shallow. There was an unspoken understanding that something had broken and wouldn't be repaired by pretending it never happened. And I paid a price too. Being right didn't make it easier. It didn't erase the years of doubt or the loneliness. It didn't undo the damage to relationships strained by silence and disbelief. Truth doesn't reward you, it just stops punishing you. But what I gained was something quieter and more lasting. Peace. No more second-guessing myself. No more carrying a truth alone. The cost was high, but pretending would have cost more. I wish I could say there was satisfaction in being right. There wasn't. What stayed with me wasn't the exposure or the aftermath, it was the years of silence that came before it. The way truth can sit in your chest and grow heavier while everyone around you chooses comfort over clarity. Being doubted doesn't just hurt your pride. It makes you question your own perception, your instincts, your right to speak at all. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: silence doesn't keep the peace. It just delays the damage. Lies don't survive because they're convincing. They survive because people are afraid of what the truth will demand from them. If you're the only one who sees something clearly, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It often means you're early. And being early is lonely. So if you're carrying a truth no one wants to hear, don't let their disbelief rewrite your reality. Protect your clarity. Trust what you know. And remember, being doubted doesn't mean you're wrong. Sometimes it just means the truth is inconvenient.